You are wiping drool off the floor before you even notice the bite missing from the leaf. Your cat is under the table, licking one paw. Your dog is staring at you as if nothing happened. And above both of them sits the same plant you have walked past 100 times without a second thought. That is how this begins in real homes. Not with a dramatic collapse, not with a plant that announces itself as dangerous. Just one torn edge, one wet spot on the floor, one quiet moment where you have to decide whether you are overreacting or already late. Because that decision changes everything. Some plants will leave your pet drooling, pawing at the mouth, maybe vomiting once, then settling back down. Others can begin with signs that look just as ordinary and still move toward kidney injury, liver injury, or something even harder to pull back from. And in that moment, the plant's appearance does not help you much. A glossy leaf does not tell you what it can do. A white flower does not tell you whether you are dealing with irritation or an emergency. The room still feels calm. The danger does not. What matters is not just which plant got chewed. What matters is the pattern you recognize fast enough. One pattern means pain in the mouth right now. Another means organ damage that may still be unfolding while the room looks completely normal. And one naming mistake sends loving, attentive people in the wrong direction when minutes matter most. That mistake happens because the plants that create the most trouble usually enter your home with the gentlest reputations. They arrive as a bouquet on the counter. A trailing vine someone said was easy. A sculptural plant by the window that feels more like decor than biology. But your pet never meets decor. Your pet meets chemistry. Your pet meets species. Your pet meets whatever the plant does the second teeth touch leaf. And nothing proves that faster than the word lily. If you hear lily, you might think you already know what that means. Most people think they do. In a home with pets, that confidence can waste precious time. Because a true lily and a peace lily are not the same emergency. They do not injure the same way. They do not call for the same level of fear. And if you put them in one harmless mental drawer labeled lily, you can miss the detail that matters most. If you have a cat, true lilies and daylilies belong in the category you do not gamble with. They are associated with acute kidney failure in cats. That is the line worth holding on to. Cats. Kidneys. Immediate concern. And the cruel part is how little exposure may be enough to matter. Not half the plant. Not some big dramatic chewing episode. A petal. A bit of pollen. Even water from the vase. Your cat can brush past the bouquet, carry pollen on the fur, groom later, and turn one ordinary room into a race against time. What makes that especially dangerous is how small the opening signs can feel. A little drooling, vomiting, less energy, maybe not much appetite. It can look like one bad hour. It can look like a stomach issue you plan to watch. But if your cat has been exposed to a true lily, early treatment is where outcomes start to change. Veterinarians and poison services treat that exposure with real urgency for a reason. The flowers can still smell sweet, the room can still feel peaceful, your cat can still seem mostly normal, and the clock can already be moving. If your dog gets into lilies, stomach upset is possible, but the kidney emergency is the cat story. That difference matters too, because panic only becomes useful when you aim it correctly. If you live with a cat, a true lily is one of the clearest indoor plant emergencies you can bring into your home. Peace lily tricks you in the opposite direction. It is toxic, but not in the same way. It is not the classic kidney failure lily emergency. It is a mouth and throat irritant. Same word. Completely different risk. If your pet bites a peace lily, the plant releases tiny needle-like crystals into the tissues of the mouth and throat. That is why the reaction often feels so sudden. Pain, drooling, pawing at the face, trouble swallowing, sometimes vomiting. Your pet does not look quietly poisoned. Your pet looks like the bite itself was a bad idea from the first second. And that is where you stop trusting the common name alone. Your pet does not meet a label. Your pet meets the exact plant. If you remember one rule long after today, let it be this. Never stop at the name everyone casually uses. Go one step deeper. Check the tag. Take the photo. Ask what species it actually is. Because the name on a bouquet card can make you anxious when you should be calmer, or calm when you should already be out the door. That is not a small distinction. It is the difference between this hurts right now and this could be causing something much worse while I am still trying to figure out the name. If plain English triage like this helps you catch the right detail faster, Subscribe now, because the plant that sounds almost cheerful can carry one of the heaviest consequences in the room. Sago palm sounds sturdy before you know what it does. Tropical, decorative, expensive looking. The kind of plant you place near a bright window and forget until someone compliments it. But if your dog or cat choose sago palm, you are not looking at a casual wait-and-see situation. This plant contains psychocin, and exposure is associated with severe liver injury. Every part is considered toxic. The seeds are especially concerning. And this is where the household clue matters just as much as the chemistry. The science tells you what the plant can do. The room tells you when it may already be happening. A dropped seed can look like debris. A pet can mouth it before you even realize anything fell. A dog can treat it like a toy. A cat can bat it once, bite once, and that can be enough to turn a quiet afternoon into an emergency. The illness can open in a way that fools you. Vomiting, diarrhea, a pet that seems miserable but not yet catastrophic. Then the picture can darken. Weakness, neurologic signs, signs consistent with liver failure. That first hour does not always sound like a liver crisis. That is why delay hurts here. You are not just reacting to what you see, you are reacting to what the plant is known to do next. So now, you are not sorting plants into safe and unsafe. You are learning the patterns of harm. If your cat meets a true lily, think kidneys. If any pet meets sago palm, think liver. Different chemistry, different organs. One identical lesson: the room can stay ordinary while the risk becomes anything but ordinary. And then there is the kind of plant that punishes the bite itself. You probably know these plants by heart, because they live everywhere. Pothos, philodendron, Dieffenbachia. They hang from shelves, they trail from baskets, they soften corners, they make apartments feel alive. And if you have ever been told they are easy, forgiving, beginner-friendly plants, that is exactly why they get underestimated around pets. If your pet bites pothos, philodendron, or Dieffenbachia, the pain usually begins in the mouth almost immediately. These plants contain insoluble calcium oxalate crystals, tiny, needle-like structures. Not later, not after some long digestive delay. In the bite, in the mouth, in the throat. And once you understand that, your pet's reaction makes perfect sense. You take one curious chew from a pothos, and the mouth suddenly burns. You nip a philodendron leaf, and your tongue does not forget it. You snap into Dieffenbachia, and the room changes in a second. Drooling, pawing at the face, head shaking, trouble swallowing, sometimes vomiting. Breathing trouble is less common, but if swelling or distress escalates, that is not something to sit with at home. From your side of the room, these plants create a strange emotional mismatch. The scene can feel intense, it can sound intense, your pet may look panicked, and yet many of these exposures remain lower in overall severity than a true lily exposure in a cat or a sago palm exposure in any pet. That does not mean you dismiss them. It means you place them correctly. Pain is real. The reaction is real. The category is different. Pothos fools people because it is sold as the plant that survives almost anything. Easy, resilient, good for beginners. But easy for you does not mean kind to a curious mouth. Philodendron carries the same trap. Soft leaves, popular varieties, a reputation for being gentle company in a home, still capable of turning one bored bite into immediate pain. And Dieffenbachia may fool you most of all, because it feels almost old-fashioned, like something that has been standing beside couches and waiting room chairs forever. But if your pet bites it, it stops being background and becomes defense chemistry in real time. Now the map gets clearer. Some plants are dangerous because of what they can do after absorption. Some are dangerous because the bite itself is the injury. And then one more plant reminds you not to force every exposure into those same two stories. Kalanchoe can sit on a windowsill, looking like the safest thing in the room. Compact, flowering, almost cheerful. But if your dog or cat choose kalanchoe, you are still dealing with a toxic plant. It contains compounds called bufadinolides. More commonly, you may see vomiting or diarrhea. More rarely, there can be heart rhythm concerns. So you do not file it with the cat and lily emergency, and you do not file it with the crystal burn pattern either. You file it where it belongs. Another reminder that small, bright, friendly-looking plants can still come with consequences. And this is the moment the two tracks finally meet. The chemistry tells you what kind of harm a plant can cause. The household clue tells you when that harm may already be starting. The bouquet on the counter, the pollen on the fur, the seed on the floor that was not there this morning, the vine that has finally grown low enough to swing into reach, the bent stem, the wet spot, the missing edge on the leaf. Those clues are not background. They are the room speaking before the emergency fully introduces itself. That is the collision point. The beautiful thing in the room and the dangerous thing in the room can be the same object. A true lily can arrive like a celebration and still be a cat emergency. A sago palm can stand there like decorative architecture and still threaten a liver. Pothos, philodendron, and dieffenbachia can live beside you for years and still turn one casual chew into instant pain. Kalanchoe can bloom like a reward plant and still bring toxic chemistry into reach. Science tells you what the plant can do. Daily life tells you when it has probably done it. And once you hear both at the same time, waiting starts to sound much less reasonable. That is when clarity becomes more useful than fear. If your cat has had any exposure to a true lily, treat that as immediate veterinary action. Not a watch and wait night. Not something you check again after dinner. Immediate action. If your dog or cat chews sago palm, treat that as immediate veterinary action too. The cost of delay is too high, and the exact plant matters. A quick photo of the plant, the tag, the bouquet, or the fallen seed can help your veterinarian much more than a guess from memory. If your pet bites a peace lily, pothos, philodendron, or dieffenbachia, your first goal is simple. Stop the exposure. Get the plant material away. If your pet allows it, gently rinse the mouth. Stay calm. Do not force a struggle that creates a second problem. And if swallowing looks hard, breathing looks different, or the distress is escalating instead of settling, get help urgently. Kalanchoe sits in its own lane. You do not ignore it because it looks small. You watch for stomach upset. You stay alert for anything more serious. And you still want the exact plant identified. Because guessing from a common name is how good intentions drift into bad decisions. This is also where your home setup matters more than people expect. A hanging plant is not safely out of reach if your cat already treats the bookshelf like a highway. A bouquet is not harmless because it is temporary. A floor plant is not safe because your dog usually ignores plants. Most plant exposures do not happen because your pet became unusually reckless. They happen because the room changed first. A bouquet came through the door, a seed dropped silently, a vine finally reached the level where curiosity lives. That is why prevention works best when it follows your pet's habits, not your decorating habits. If your cat goes everywhere, somewhere high up is not a real safety plan. If your dog investigates the floor every evening, do not let fallen plant pieces become part of that routine. If you live with cats, true lilies do not belong in the house. If you live with dogs or cats, sago palm is not worth the gamble. And if you keep peace lily, pothos, philodendron, dieffenbachia, or kalanchoe, keep them well outside the paths your pets actually use when they are bored, hungry, playful, or half asleep and wandering. Hold on to your plant tags. Keep a photo on your phone before the label disappears. If a friend brings flowers, find out exactly what they are before they settle into the center of the room. If something gets chewed, trust the clue early. The drool, the pawing, the pollen on the coat, the snapped stem, the little mess on the rug. Those details are not you being dramatic. They are often the first honest part of the story. And if you know one pet owner whose home is full of green things and good assumptions, send this to them now, because the clue that saves time is usually not the dramatic symptom. It is the small sign on the floor that tells you what happened before the panic catches up. What you need most is not a giant list memorized forever. You need fast pattern recognition. True lily with a cat, emergency. Sago palm with any pet, emergency. Peace lily, pothos, philodendron, dieffenbachia, immediate mouth pain pattern, sometimes more, and worth prompt attention. Kalanchoe, stomach upset more commonly, with a rarer heart concern behind it. That is the kind of clarity that turns a frightening moment into a workable one. Because the goal is not to strip every living thing out of your home. The goal is to take preventable surprises out of it. Let your safest plant choices live where your pets already live. Let bouquet decisions respect the animals in the room. Let plant care include pet reality from the beginning, instead of after the bite mark appears. And that brings you back to where you started. One missing piece of leaf, one wet spot on the floor, At the beginning, that scene felt like uncertainty. Now it means something more useful. It means you know what questions to ask faster. You know a peaceful flower can hide a kidney emergency for a cat. You know a decorative palm can hide a liver emergency for any pet. You know the familiar trailing vines and upright tropical leaves in ordinary homes can fight back the second they are chewed. There is something reassuring in that, and not because the danger is small. Because your attention matters. The bite mark you almost dismissed, the pollen you noticed on the fur, the plant name you chose to verify instead of guessing. That is care in its most practical form. So if you walk back into your living room tonight and notice your plants a little differently, that is not fear. That is awareness finally catching up with familiarity. And sometimes safety begins with one wet paw print, one torn leaf, and the second you decide to trust what the room is trying to tell you.